Welcome to the Unscripted podcast. My name's Corby LaCroix, and the song you're hearing right now is called Great and Mighty One, available on Spotify, iTunes, or wherever you get your music. But for now, recording from the Unscripted studio at the Junction in Old Hilliard, here's your host and my friend, Aaron Conrad.
Great Redeemer, God of grace.
All right, everybody, welcome to Unscripted in my basement, which will soon be at the Junction Studios, and thank you for Corby for my introduction. Real quick today, I'm actually not going to waste a lot of time on a bio. I'll just say this. I have my guest today is a Hilliard resident, and I think simply put, a mama on a mission. And if anybody's introduced or married to or knows a mama on a mission, then you want to get the heck out of the way and let them do what they want to do. So a couple of quick statistics. Let me read these real quick, and then we'll introduce my guest. Each day, 8 children die from gun violence in America. Another 32 are shot and injured, and this is all off the internet. The U.S. had 1,316 school shootings since 1970. Let me read that again. The U.S. had 1,316 school shootings since 1970, and the numbers are increasing. 18% of school shootings have taken place since the tragedy at Sandy Hook Elementary School in December of 2012. I have a feeling that number's probably increased in the last year or maybe more. So let my guest go ahead and introduce herself, and we will take it from there.
Hi, Aaron. Thank you so much for having me today. My name is Tizzie. I live here in Hilliard with my 2 kids, Nevin and Callie, and my husband, Nolan. And I'm really excited to just share what we're working on, and I appreciate you giving us the space to do that.
Absolutely. So it's Tizzie Nuss, right? Like bus, but with an N.
Yeah.
So Nuss, Tizzie Nuss. And again, former Hilliard resident, or how do I say it right?
Current. Yeah.
Current. Thank you. Current Hilliard resident. What's the word I'm looking for? Say whatever. We're both Hilliard residents. That's what I'm trying to say. I can't seem to think of it. Welcome to Unscripted. So whatever that word is, we are both Hilliard residents, and I'm so proud of you and what you're doing, because it's literally could be life changing for our kids, for kids in other schools, and it's really just awesome to have you on today. So let me get out of the way. Go ahead, and why don't you just tell us the story? Because the Spark Project is really what we wanted to talk about today. And again, as I led off with school shootings, this is a part of our reality. Unfortunately, it is a part of our reality as parents, as residents, as the United States. This is our reality, as you spoke of in the video. This is our reality. We used to, hide for or run through tornado drills and things like that. And now we do shooting drills, which is something I don't think a lot of people can get their head around. So let me get out of the way. Tizzie, go ahead and let's tell us the story. Tell us the story, please, about the Spark Project.
Sure. So thank you. I think it's important to kind of back up and maybe understand, like, why am I doing this? And
right.
This is really about me answering a calling. And so this journey starts at least over 5 years ago, as I was working at a company. I've spent my entire career mostly in human resources. And when I was at lunch one day with 2 colleagues, the topic of school shootings came up. And initially I was just like, because, I'm a mom. And I was like, gosh, this, like, kids and shootings never belong in the same sentence.
Right.
And, but then right after that feeling, it was the feeling of, wait a minute, why haven't we done something tangible to protect our children? As you mentioned, we grew up with fire drills and severe weather drills. I didn't grow up with lockdown drills, but I know that my kids are experiencing those. And so I was like, what? Now they have the words and how to prepare them during these drills, but where is something that's going to actually step in and protect them, which just like this ignited in me. And the 2 other guys at the table, we were like, we could make a really good team, and maybe we could do something. Maybe we could create something. And the 3 of us really started to work on creating something. And then we all went separate ways, and meaning we all left the company. And I still felt really pulled from above that I was supposed to tackle this. But at that point, I did not have the confidence to think that I could do this. I work in human resources, so that means I know what I'm good at, which is like that much, and what I'm not good at. And so, but God kept giving me signs. And every time I'd get a sign, it would be like on my heart, or I'd watch the news and see another tragic incident, or these innocent lives that we're losing. And so in October of 2017, I got my last sign, and I woke up one day and my eyesight was really foggy and blurry. And I thought to myself, oh man, I'm supposed to have this meeting, this breakfast with this guy I work with who's known to be, just big heart, really religious. And I was like, I bet God wants me to like talk to him about the Spark project and this thing that I want to create, which I know sounds crazy. And so I go to work and I'm talking to him, and he said, Tizzie, is everything okay with you? And I'm like, oh, my eyesight's really blurry. I feel like I need to tell you something that's really on my heart. And he was like, hold on a second. And I hadn't told him anything. He was like, I feel like you're going to talk to me about safety.
Wow.
I just like broke down in tears and was like shaking. And, we had this amazing conversation, and I walked back to my desk and I thought, oh gosh, okay. All right, God, now hopefully this clears up, because I just, unpacked all this stuff. And the exact opposite happened. As the day wore on, my eyesight got worse. I ended up going to the ER. Then I was sent home. It was the worst night of my life. I actually could not see. I feared that I would never see my kids' faces again, or my husband's face. And the next morning I ended up at a specialist, and they had no idea how I contracted this really bad infection in both eyes. I knew it was coming from above, but this is it. This is your last sign. And I mean, those were the scariest days of my life. And I prayed and prayed and, made a promise that I would never, ever question why I'm here, and that I could make this happen. And I knew that God would give me all the right people and resources to do it.
Wow. Unbelievable.
Yeah. And so thankfully, 2 days later, I got my eyesight back, and I did what anybody would do. I immediately called those two gentlemen and was like, I've had this life-changing experience, and I need you guys. And they weren't in great places in their lives. And I was like, I just know this is supposed to be me. And so February of 2018, we created the LLC and got to work. And I have not stopped. I mean, since the day I lost my eyesight and got it back, I haven't stopped, trying to figure out, how am I going to do this? How am I going to bring something to life that's in my head? And in an industry that's really confusing. I don't have a background, working in ballistics. And so that was another big challenge but God has provided so many, just opened so many doors for me that this has been able to come to life.
Right. And so it's so clear when it's so clear, right? And yet it's not. I mean, sometimes he has to shake us up a little bit, make us a little bit uncomfortable. But at the same time, like sooner or later, I've mentioned this. I don't know how many podcasts I've mentioned this, but it's like, go to Nineveh. Go to Nineveh. I told you to go to Nineveh. And so sometimes I have to throw you out of the boat and physically before it's like, okay, I'll go to Nineveh. I'll go do what it is you told me to do. And so that's so we're in year 2 or 3 of this project from launch from LLC. This is 2021. So I'm not very good at math, but it's 3 years. Me
neither during the time. So
3 years,
I write
right?
down notes. I always forget like numbers and stuff. But so yeah, in 2018, I created the LLC with the help of a friend. I mean, there's so many stories of just people as they hear what I'm doing, they're like, how can I help you? It was a friend who was an attorney. He's like, I'll create the LLC for you today. And so then I signed up for some business planning courses. I knew that I needed to get educated and I love people and I love networking, and I just continued to do that even more. took accelerators, and I was introduced to a company here locally that is a product development company. So they kind of helped me take this idea. I wanted something that was lightweight. I wanted something that kids, could feel empowered. I mean, this is such a scary, hard topic. I wanted to bring kids into the conversation just like I would want my own, in a really safe and loving way. And so I knew that I wanted kids to be a part of, designing it in some fashion. And so working with this local product development company, and then just as, like I said, there's been so many people, I was introduced to a gentleman who is a ballistics expert. And at the time, he just happened to be working at Ohio State, not because he was an expert, but so getting his support was huge. I mean, his entire career he spent in research and development, 22 years in the armored industry.
Wow.
I mean, the fact that he was in Columbus and I was connected to him, it just changed everything, because he helped us find the right material. He helped test in accordance with the standards that exist through the National Institute of Justice, which is extremely confusing. And what somebody may not know is, if you were to purchase something today as a consumer, there is no oversight from the government. The government oversight is for law enforcement and military, but nothing for these other products that are on the market. And I was just so confused by that. And so with his help, I mean, we have went above and beyond and done a ton of testing. And so to kind of fast forward, we spent some time in, product development and to testing. So fast forward last year in February, February 2020, I left my career in human resources for the Spark Project. And that was, another sign that I was given from above that I needed to just be all in. And we launched a crowdfunding campaign just to get us off the ground, to raise some money, offer a pre-order. And 2 weeks later, COVID happened. And, I felt so much pressure of like, I can never move fast enough, as you watch the news and you see things happen. But even, 2 weeks later, in the middle of a pandemic, we still had this successful crowdfunding campaign and this amazing support, which afforded us the opportunity to make and produce the very first Spark Shields last summer into fall, and make them right here. They're not just made in the US, they're made right here in Ohio.
Wow. That's awesome.
Yeah. And so that was amazing. And now, we're around out 2020 with, I've, built a team of advisors to help me navigate, like, how do I continue to push us forward? And so that brings us now to 2021 and our second podcast, which I'm, thrilled that you invited us on.
Yeah. Well, I'm so honored because I saw what you were doing and again, I always want to support people from Hilliard, but I want to support anybody that has a story. Everybody has a story, but this is a fascinating story because every morning I wake up, you can ask my wife, every morning I wake up, I turn on, not a plug because they're not a partner or anything, but I turn on ABC News or ABC 6 and I watch that, and then they switch over to Fox. And I watch my morning, I'm that guy. I'm that age now where I watch the Good Morning Show, and every day I swear to you, there's another shooting in Columbus. And I literally every day, and it seems like it's getting worse. And if it's not Columbus, we just had one, and I don't know when people will hear this, but we just had one in Times Square. We just had one, and there's an issue here, and it's gotten worse since we came back from COVID. I'm not smart enough to have the statistics on that, but at the end of the day, this is a problem. And this is not a podcast about gun rights, and I'm not here for that discussion. What I am here is keeping our kids safe. And so, for anybody that doesn't know, can we talk about the product itself real quick and then get into more of this? Because I think there's so much fascinating about you starting a company, you stepping out on faith, but I really want to talk, what is the product? Just in case somebody's listening to this, what is the product?
Yeah. So the product, can I show it just in case you do a video?
Sure, absolutely. Okay. Yeah, no, so this platform is on both. There's people that listen, people that watch. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So it is a folder size, bullet resistant, shield. And so there's a couple things, one, obviously anybody viewing will be able to see, but I'll try to make sure I describe it really well. One, as I mentioned before, I wanted it to be lightweight. So look at how I'm holding this. It's super, super lightweight. Inside is that bullet resistant material. There's also the front is clear, and you can see my daughter's artwork from Happy Earth Day.
Love it.
But that was that important component I talked to you about, like how I want kids to put stickers or design it, and I want them to make it their own and just not this cold thing. And then there's also a lot of room in there, so it doubles as a folder. So you can put those papers that, you know, kids may or may not always get home to you that are easy to lose, or some people put an iPad in there or phone. And then on the back, it's going to be hard to see because of the coloring, but there's handles.
Right.
They're kind of like just kind of blend in, but that's in case that emergency that we never want to happen, but then they have something they can crouch down and cover their head and their heart. So that's what makes it really, really different. And, you know, it's at a size that you can put it into most, if not, I mean, I haven't tried on every single backpack, but I've tried on my son's, who is 13 and continues to get smaller.
Yeah.
That it, you know, it fits in there as well. So, you know, that is the Spark Shield, and, you know, the different things that are wrapped up into, you know, bringing this to life and putting something into our children's hands.
And there's multiple uses. So it could slide in my backpack, and which obviously would it would provide that ballistic coverage in my backpack, because it could be what saves my life. And then there's also, if I just had it, or if I wanted to take it out of my backpack, now it's kind of like the Captain America shield in many ways. It's got handles. I can use it in the event of emergency, and God forbid any one of our children are in that emergency. But, you know, we provide them with everything else. You know, we put them a raincoat on them when it's cold. You know, when it's raining, we put a winter coat and hats and gloves on them when it's cold. Again, not the same thing, but we do our best to give our kids everything we can to protect them from whatever this world could give them. And a school shooting, unfortunately, is something that needs to be in the discussion, as heartbreaking as that is.
It is. And, you know, and it, to your point, it is lightweight. So it doesn't have to just live in the backpack, because I thought about that. Like, you know, there's so many different things and scenarios that could play out. That what if the backpack isn't allowed in the class, or, you know, and so they can actually carry it and hold it from class to class too. And it can be something that they incorporate outside of school if necessary. I've had different people interested. I mean, obviously I'm super focused on our kids first and foremost. And to your point, the one thing that I noticed as I started to dig into this is the majority of school shootings that happened, somebody knew something and they didn't tell anyone.
Right.
And so I was like, gosh, okay, I have to create something, and I have to get it into our kids' hands. We have to protect them, period. And then two, how can the Spark Project be about, you know, talking about this in a meaningful way with, you know, bringing in first responders? How can we bring in schools, and how can we bring in parents? I mean, this is a really complex issue, and, you know, I do not have the answer to it all. I don't. But what I do know is that we have to do something now. I mean, you read some statistics. We all know that kids have been isolated with COVID. Mm-hmm. You know, they've returned, some have returned to school, some are starting to. There's so much violence. You know, it is hard enough to be a parent, let alone to put your kid on the bus and worry about, are you going to be seeing something on the news? And to your point, I watch the news in the morning too, and it's every day there's another headline, and it's just really hard. It's really hard to be a parent, and I can't imagine how hard it is to be a kid. Mm-hmm. And also to be a kid who's living in this, knowing they're doing these drills. Like, we have to do more for them. Right.
We have to equip them. I mean, I think God gave them to us for a reason. Each child is born to each family, or, you know, adopted into each family for a reason. And because of that, I think we have a responsibility to give them everything we can within our means, you know. That different rant, I guess, but I think along the same lines. But to your point, Tizzie, there's 16, the page that I printed off here to read off some statistics, there's 16. And most of those have to do with mental illness, It has to do with the fact that nobody said anything, that there were signs that were there. I didn't think they were relevant to this conversation for your product, but at the end of the day, they are relevant to this conversation. The signs, everything is out there. We have the statistics, unfortunately, because of the amount of data we have. Again, unfortunately, I wish we had no data on this.
Yeah,
but we have a lot. We have a lot of data.
One school shooting is too many.
Right.
One.
Right.
And yeah, I think we're just all trying to figure out what to do. And that's where I was just like, every day I can't move fast enough. How do I, make this thing in my head, bring it to life from prototype and to, bring the Spark Shield, and now how do we get it into the hands of our children? And also, how do we help be a part of this larger conversation? Because to your point, it is fueled with a lot of emotions. The one thing that I know is that everyone can get behind protecting our kids.
Absolutely.
Everyone, right? None of us want this.
No.
But we can't just sit back and say, oh man, this is terrible and I don't want to talk about it, but not do anything.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we have to. I mean, we have to get involved, and it feels overwhelming, to be honest, at times, because there's so many layers of complexity.
Right. So what are the ways for people listening? What are the ways? So I've heard this podcast now. I'm in. I want to, and let me say this really quick before we get into that. I think based on, and again, if, because this is heard or seen, I'm not sure. If you're listening to this, this is a little bit bigger than an iPad Pro. If I was to slide an iPad Pro into my child's backpack, that's about the size we're talking about. What are the exact dimensions? Do you know?
It's like about 10.5 by 11.5 and about 1 inch thick.
And the weight?
Oh gosh, it's less than 2 pounds.
So if I was to put an iPad Pro in my child's backpack, we're not talking much larger, much heavier than that. And a lot of our kids, thankfully, I know in the district we're in, a lot of those kids have iPads. But we're talking iPad Pro, so the bigger, the larger one. This is what could potentially save their life. We're putting in their backpack. So I just wanted to give that frame of reference for people.
And the one thing I want to make sure that I say, because it is something that I learned right away in working with a ballistics expert. He said, Tizzie, nothing is bulletproof. Nothing.
Wow.
And he's right. And so we've done a ton of testing, and, we've tested this against, a 9mm, a 357, and so a 44 mag. And so those are some of the handguns that we've used on this. I mean, this is where we're starting. I know that, things will continue to evolve, but what it does is it puts something tangible in between our precious children and a potential threat.
Right. My former life, I was in the security industry for 15 years, a better part of my career, the industrial security industry. And one of the challenges was always to create a classroom lock that would prevent, so teachers could go in. And you've seen, there's so many variations. They're seeing you slide in the door. But again, it was always the challenge of teacher goes out in the hallway, the kids lock the teacher out, and so again, there's all those things, but literally the security industry, I can tell you from my years of experience, the security industry is constantly trying to figure out, how do we protect our kids? This is something I can put in my backpack, and now I don't have to rely on this. And again, this is no disrespect to the schools. The schools are doing everything they can.
Oh, yeah.
The budgets they have, there's a lot of variables, as you said. There's so many variables in play here, but this is one thing I could do. So let me ask you that as a parent. So I think I take it back to the question. As a parent, how do what can I do? Can I purchase this through a website? How do I get my hands on one of these for my kids? So
you can purchase it from our website at sparkproject.us. It's available there now. I'm not in anywhere else. I basically just launched, but I want our parents to have something, and I want them to have an option, right? And what I'm excited about is, one, now we have it and parents can purchase it for their child. And I kind of talked a little bit about how I put together this advisory board, and on our advisory board is now someone who I just recently met, and she's a mental health therapist. And so with her help, that's kind of where we're going, is how do we provide some resources for parents too? What are some conversation starters? Depending on what school you're at, you may or may not get communication. And so that's where I see that we can be of help for parents too.
Have you found that schools are easy to work with, hard to work with? And is there, I have to imagine there's a ton of red tape.
True. Very true. I met with someone from the Hilliard School Board just recently, last month, and he was really positive about it and wants to connect me to some folks here in Hilliard, which, is a dream. I mean, this is such a grassroots thing, and it would be great to partner with Hilliard in some way. But I recognize that budgets, I mean, my parents were educators, retired teacher, retired principals. Right. So I didn't grow. I know that they have limited resources. And so I don't look at that, though, as like a challenge we can't figure out. Right. Between how can we fund this or how can we do fundraisers? I'm open to so much because I just believe so in my heart that we have to just move as fast as we can and get this out there.
And I'm a believer that you just run fast, and hopefully you can find people that'll keep pace with whatever it is that you do, whether it's a podcast or my podcast literally has no impact on the world. This has a much bigger impact on the world. This has a much, much bigger impact on the world. It's saving lives. I don't think my podcast is saving lives. Maybe, I don't know. But either way,
the podcast is going to help us reach people that I haven't reached. I mean,
which could save a life, maybe.
Absolutely.
So thank you for that. No, I literally, I think you want to find people. Manny, who was my previous guest on the last episode, not a plug, said something so brilliant, and that was that you want your dream to be big enough to include other people. And because and I think that is so important as someone who's a visionary, and we've touched a lot of topics. This is kind of the visionary dreamer, have a passion for something that you believe God's driving you to. I really do think it has to be big enough that other people have to be involved, because when you do, it's amazing. And there's nothing more exciting than seeing people more excited, maybe even than you are, about your dreams. So it sounds like you've had that along the way as well. Is that true?
Yeah, I have this running tab in my head of just these people that have one I know that God has sent to me, and I get emotional thinking about it because they have just helped me tremendously. I mean, from, creating an LLC to my pastor introducing me to my patent attorney, to, just this past year, I got a sponsorship from Office Depot to attend a class, this nationwide class for female founders that I just finished up. I could go on and on, but what it is, it's just the constant support of people knowing this work is important, wanting to be of help, and knowing how much our kids need this. And so for them to, put their faith in me and help me in this journey is just, I'm constantly just overwhelmed with gratitude.
I think what you see is God going before you. It's like, hey, and that's, I think when we walk through any door that he opens, and sometimes it takes a push, but for you, it was not being able to see. He pushed you through that door, and as soon as he pushes you through that door, you see so many more open, and it's an exciting ride for anyone listening to this. I know this has nothing to do with the Spark Project or anything like that, but anyone listening to this that has a dream or a vision, I hope you hear that God will go before you when you believe in your heart that this is what he's calling you to do. It's unbelievable to be a part of it, and it's the greatest joy. Like, it's just so amazing to be a part of it. It can't be explained in words, and I'm not probably going to do a good job explaining it, but I'm happy for you. I'm thrilled for you that this is a part of it. But the important thing is, so schools are hard to break into. What other avenues, how can anyone listening to this help? Along that same line, what other doors could someone that hears this open for you? What are doors that you're struggling with right now?
That's a great question, because I think there's a number of different things. One, I am like always, I shouldn't say always available because that's just not a great thing for a mom to always be available. But
Right.
I love connecting with people. And if, one thing that people could do is they can ask the question of their own school, right? Mm-hmm. As a parent who wants to purchase one, I've had parents purchase them and then they talk to their school and say, that's where we're just starting to get to, but our voice gets louder as more people share this work. And, I've had a great conversation recently with somebody who does grant writing. And it was like, there's probably definitely, your product helps from a mental health perspective. It helps kids feel safer. It probably reduces their anxiety and gives parents more security. So I know there has to be a solution. I know that it's coming, but if somebody in that space has, the ability to connect us with schools or, even more parents, because what I can't do is I can't wait. And we can't wait. And so I've always said the first thing is, there's something to your point at the very beginning about a mom on a mission. There is nothing that we will do that we will stop at to protect our kids. And so immediately moms are like, I want this for my kid. I want this, for my son and my daughter. And then I think longer term strategy really is how do we get into schools and how do we provide this? I think superintendents and principals are so maxed out with the amount. I'll put it this way. When I think about last year and even still this year, look how much we changed everything. This is not opinion, but for COVID, we changed how far we can be from each other. We put masks, and again, this is not about right and wrong, but how many children died of COVID before we did that?
Right.
And so it gives me so much hope that we can make change happen. We can do it.
Mm-hmm. Right. So we went out ahead of something that really statistically had nowhere near. To your point, I'll say it since it's my podcast. I can say stuff people won't judge your organization. At the end of the day, the statistics I read is that U.S. had 1,316 school shootings since 1970. How many things did we do to fix that? And again, this is not a discussion about guns and all that stuff. The question I think you're raising that I'll just go ahead and put, because it's my podcast, I can say what I want. The U.S. had 1,316 school shootings, and I bet that number's higher since 1970. And what have we done to fix that? And that's, again, I'm not asking about guns. I'm asking about what could our schools have done to fix it. And so ultimately it comes back to you've created, so not all, because it's easy for a lot of us to armchair quarterback everything and say, oh, you should have done this, you should have done that. You have actually gone out and done something, and which is I just have so much respect for that. Instead of just saying we and writing a letter to the school board or whatever it might have been, you actually went out and created a solution. So the question too for you is that this is a product that I can purchase myself, or is this something that, just so I understand the chain of purchasing and how that works? Can you explain that a little bit?
Of course, absolutely. We have a little bit of inventory left from our first round. I get nervous thinking about okay, when that's out, I got to make a big, just another thing any business owner has to think about. Right. So yes, you can get a Spark Shield right now if you want one, if you want two, whatever that might look like. I have women buying them as well, which isn't something that I kind of alluded to that I didn't anticipate. Right. But they're like, I've seen these shootings at these different malls and I'm not feeling safe. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I didn't think about that. And then if there is a school or someone interested in a bulk order, that would be something that we can absolutely do, but would have to do, I would have to talk to them directly so that we could kind of work through the logistics and the timing and whatnot. But we have this great team of amazing people that are our partners that are here in Ohio that have the biggest hearts that have helped me bring this dream to life. And I feel so fortunate, to have their support, and for this to also be made here just feels so special.
Are there any partners you want to go ahead and give a shout out to? Not that the two people listening to this would hear it, but is there anyone that you'd like to give a shout out to?
Oh yeah. So one organization is called Fortner, and they're a family-owned business on South High, and they do upholstery work. And so what's so incredible about how I found them is, okay, real quick, can I give you a story about it?
Absolutely, yeah.
So my product development guy had said, hey, I talked to these people at Fortner, and I didn't know the name, and I'm like, every day, move. And we didn't have the product ready. He's like, they do upholstery work. And I'm like, what is he talking to me about? Like, I couldn't even understand. Right. And I was supposed to go meet my patent attorney for the first time. You know how you said you aren't good with numbers? I'm not good with numbers, and I'm terrible with directions. And so I plugged into my maps, the address on, downtown on High Street to meet my potential patent attorney. And when I got to like South High, way away from any of the like high-rise buildings, I'm like, where am I at? And so I stopped at this big area, and it said the Fort. And I was like, oh, I went the wrong way. And it's because I didn't have the right zip code. So I turned around and went back. Fast forward a week later, when my product development guy was like, Tizzie, they love what you're doing, this people at Fortner, and they want to help you. And I'm like, oh. And he's like, wow. They're going to be able to do things. They've had this family-owned business for generations. They can get your costs down. And I was like, oh, now I hear you, Right. And so when I went to meet with them, that was the building, the Fort on South High, that I got turned around the week before.
Wow. Wow. And that's, there's always the joke, and I'm sure many people have heard it, maybe not, of, there's somebody came and knocked on a door and said, hey, there's a flood coming, you need to get out. And the person stayed. And then the next thing, somebody came and he said, hey, I've got a canoe because the water's rising. He said, I got a canoe. And I'm destroying the joke right now, but there's a canoe, the guy comes by in a canoe. He says, hey, the water's rising. You need to get out. And the guy's like, no, I'm good. God will save me. And then he's sitting up on the roof, and a helicopter comes and he says, hey, there's the floods up to the roof. You need to get out of here. And he's like, no, God will save me. He dies. He goes to heaven, and he says, he walks in. He said, I thought you were going to save me. And God said, well, I sent you a person, a canoe, and a helicopter. Right. I mean, I destroyed the joke. But anyway, it's the same idea. Like, I think we get those signs and wonders, and so often we ask for them, but then we don't miss them. We just don't take advantage of them. Maybe. Is that fair?
It is. And I'm so in tune. Like, I know that was an example of me not being in tune, but like after losing my eyesight, I feel like I'm always like, that's a sign. That's a sign. And they are signs. I mean, these amazing people at Fortner, I can't say enough good things about. I mean, think about the fact that everybody was dealing with COVID. They still are, but especially last year, and to then have a startup, I wasn't sure, like, is this still going to work? They're going to have to figure out their own situation. Everyone's struggling. But of course they came through, and they helped bring this to life, and they're fantastic people. I love them. They're amazing.
And I think, and maybe I'm speaking out of school, Ohio State was somewhat involved, right? In the ballistics piece. Okay.
Yes. Thank you. I should have said that.
No, I just want to make sure that was correct.
Yeah. So the gentleman, he isn't there anymore, but he was working at Ohio State at the time. And so he was working at CDM. It's like their Center of Manufacturing and Design Excellence. And so really we get to say it's developed in conjunction with the Ohio State University, which feels pretty amazing. And then to have this ballistics expert who is still advising me and a part of our team, I can't say enough great things about him. And I knew the moment I met him, I knew it wasn't going to be easy because he had this background. And when I came to him with our prototype, I could tell he was not impressed. And he was like, it needs to be bigger. And I was really concerned that, maybe we weren't going to make it happen. And he said, if I'm going to be a part of something, I'm going to put my name behind it, with this incredible background. And so I was like, well, what if we make it bigger? And what if we put handles on it? Then the kids' hands aren't exposed. And he was like, that I can get behind. And that was years ago. And now, I call him all the time and ask him questions and, try not to forget. This guy is just incredible. And so incredibly grateful for his, not only just like knowledge, but support and guidance. And, he continues to help me as I think about like, the Spark Shield will continue to evolve in what we do. And to know that I have somebody support like that, I feel like we're in great hands.
Yeah, and I will include the video and with the footnote that it was for a crowdfunding that I think has since passed or ended. However, The video is really powerful because it shows even your early prototypes as you went through that process, which is awesome. What are and I'm going to put you on the spot. What are 3 ways that anyone listening to this? Maybe you don't have 3, maybe there's only 1, but what are 3 ways that people can help you, the Spark Project, and get this to the next, whatever's next that God has for you? Because honestly, it's really whatever God has for this project, which clearly he's called you to, he's helped you design, he's opened the doors, he's paved the way. What for you, what wind can people put in your sails to continue this on?
Oh my gosh, I feel like I should have this, this is such a great question, and it is so important. And, something I have to get better is asking, right?
Right.
One thing people can do is they can join us. I mean, you can follow us on social media. We're on Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn at the SPKPJT for Spark Project. I got to figure out how to change that because it's really confusing, but that's what it is right now.
Okay.
2, if you're interested and want to learn more or purchase a Spark Shield, that helps a ton. And 3, we talk about moms on a mission. I think it's moms on a mission. It's parents on a mission. It's grandparents on a mission. I want us to give everyone a voice because our voices matter and they need to get louder. We need to continue to reach further. And, this isn't something people think about because it's not something that really you think about today because it doesn't exist in the system that you're, with your kid. And so there's a whole lot of education, but, getting people involved and joining us, I think that this continues to grow, not just local. I think it gets even bigger because this is a problem across the entire US. And I'm so energized by the people who've joined us so far. And I would love more people to become a part of this and join us. And like you said, it can be like a follow. It can be sharing, just simply sharing a video on social media. I posted something the other day. This is going to just sound like such a rookie, but I posted a reel for the first time, or I reposted it, and it was getting so much traction.
Right.
And I thought, gosh, I gotta get better at some of this stuff because, that's how our voice continues to get out there. But what I feel like is when I see other people sharing and helping us push forward, it means so much to me because this isn't just my voice. This is our voice.
Right.
We all want our kids to be safe, and they deserve to be safe always.
Well, and there's 2 things I thought of. One before our conversation and one during. The one during was the fact that, I think this might be effective even in the workplace. That's just where we are today. And I know we've talked a lot about our kids because obviously that's, first and foremost for some of us, but even if you're single and you're in a workplace, workplace violence is real. I don't even have the workplace violence statistics. I can't even speak to that right now. But as we said, just turn on the morning news, literally every morning there's a shooting, and some of them are in neighborhoods or whatever. But at the end of the day, if it makes you feel better, maybe slide one in your backpack. I carry a backpack to work every day. That's just what I do. And that's, if I just had one other piece in that backpack, it doesn't make a difference, but it could make a difference in my life. So that was 1. And 2, I remember when we moved to Columbus, we had just got here. We were in a little apartment in Westerville, and it was my wife was substituting at the Ohio School for the Deaf. And she was at the school, and I came home because the Columbine shooting was happening in real time on TV. And I don't know that I've ever been more scared. And we didn't even have kids yet. But I don't know that I've ever been more just numb and scared because this might have even been before cell phones or early in the cell phone years. So you couldn't just have that immediate contact, like, are you okay? And I just remember when she walked in the door safe. And again, it wasn't in Columbus. It wasn't at her school. But at the end of the day, it became very real for me. And I think for each one of us, every time this happens, it becomes very, very real. I don't even know if I'm allowed to say this, but I know Hilliard Schools at one point had a threat, which thank God they caught early. I think we go back to the statistics, and I don't even know if I'm allowed to say that, but it's okay. But I know they caught one early. So we can't say this won't happen in my neighborhood. It could happen in your neighborhood. It could happen to any of us at any time. And this product will certainly help. It could save their life.
It could. And to your point, there are, like you mentioned, whether it's at the workplace, having worked in HR, I know what it feels like to be on the end of having, have difficult conversations with somebody and they're exiting a business, and, it can be scary. And you always think things are safe, but I've had scenarios where people have made it back into the building and back into my office. And, I have people who have purchased this and they put it in their car. They put it by their bed at night. I mean, there's a lot of different scenarios that people are just using, which is, it feels, if it helps in some way. I mean, any person, I want a kid to be safe. I want anyone to be safe. I mean, I feel like that's why God put this here. I feel like that's why he gifted us with this ballistics expert to help us bring it to life. And I hope no one ever has to use it, clearly. But what I hope more than that is that our kids have it just in case it's needed.
This isn't a business for you. This is personal. And I think that's what I want everyone to hear is this podcast isn't really for a business or to help you grow a business. This is to help share a message that could change a life. And that's why I really wanted to have you on. I'm so proud of you. I know we've met today for the first time in person. I guess if you want to call Zoom in person, but we know of each other. And at the end of the day, I'm just proud of you. I'm proud of you that you're representing our city, but I'm also proud of you that you could change a life. You literally could save a life with what you're doing. And anything I can do, you have my commitment that this podcast, whatever it could do to help you, as both Hilliard residents, I think we're both just kind of scratching the surface of what both of these things could become. Yours much, much more important than mine, but anything that I can do to help you, you have my full support, 100%.
That means so much to me. I seriously, I'm going to tear up, and thank goodness, I guess most people might listen, not see if I start crying, but I mean that I being able to share this with you and with your audience helps get the message out there to more people, like I said earlier. And I don't take that lightly, and I don't take it by chance that God connected us either.
No.
And I appreciate your support. I need it. And I certainly, I always feel like I'm saying I'm so grateful, because I am. I'm so grateful for the amount of support and people like you that are giving us a microphone right now.
Right. The last question I have for you is, have you ever thought about going on Shark Tank?
Oh my God, people ask me that all the time.
Seriously, why not? Have you?
I actually submitted an application. I don't remember. Everything is a blur. I see here, there comes the numbers. I'm like, numbers and dates and directions. Mm-hmm. You know what? I think what you probably can read from me is I am not opposed to how we can do this fastest.
Yes.
And for me, it is, if that's where God wants this to go, I know that's where it's going to go. I have so much faith that this is his work. This is his message. I'm just trying to not screw it up so much.
Yeah.
And, I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah. Well, I think, I don't even know the finances of it. I don't know if you need the finances. I'm sure it would certainly help, but I think the awareness of it would be massive for you. So I have zero connections to the Shark Tank, but I love the show. Besides that, I'm a huge follower of the show, but I think this, getting out of that national audience, telling the story and people seeing it, I think it could just, literally take off for you. So if anybody listening knows somebody from Shark Tank, give Tizzie a call.
Yes, call me. I know. I feel the same way. I'm like, that kind of like ability to change and really spark change at that kind of like, that's an accelerant that I think that we can all hope for. And whether it's that, whether it's somebody else that has, a lot more capital than maybe I do, that any of that, this is just all about getting this into every single kid's hand.
Absolutely. So quickly, and I'm sorry for so much time today, but I'm so thankful for all your time today.
No, this has been great.
What are the what are the links? One, the website. Two, to contact you, and then three, any other links that you may want to share. But just for the post and for anybody listening to this, what are the best ways to support you and then to contact you?
You can contact me. Well, first is our website is sparkproject.us. We are on LinkedIn, Instagram, and Facebook, and that is at THESPKPJT. So again, it's kind of like Spark and Project, like abbreviated.
Perfect.
And you can certainly reach out to me on social media as well. I'm accessible there, and welcome any comments or feedback or ideas. I feel like the best things happen are things like this, and someone contacts me and they're like, you know what, I know so and so or whatnot. I mean, that's just the magic of what you're doing, is you're connecting people that are supposed to be connected, and they aren't going to get there without you.
Well, thank you. I like to be 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon. And it's one of my favorite parts of this podcast. Honestly, I don't have a vision or a dream or a goal really for the podcast outside of just putting a spotlight on people like yourself that are making a difference in the world and have a story to tell. And we all have one, but this is a special one. And I'm thankful for you. I'm proud of you. And I'm thankful to call your neighbor, even though we're not next door neighbors or anything, but I'm thankful you're in our city, and that anything I can do to help, I'm here to help you.
Thank you so much, Aaron. Thank
Absolutely.
you. I mean, honestly, this has been so great, and I'm grateful for your time and your support and for giving us just some time today to share what we're working on. And I thank you.
Well, and I can't wait to DVR the episode on Shark Tank.
Oh my gosh. You know what? If we make it on Shark Tank, you will be of the first that I call. I mean, I'm going to call my mom first.
There you go. All right. Just give me an interview with Mark Cuban and we'll be good to go. So no, I'm just kidding.
I think this would be a good deal for Mark.
Absolutely. It'd be huge. I wish you nothing but the best. Thank you so much for your time, and we will let's be in touch. I'm sure we'll be in touch offline for ways that I can help you. Okay.
Thank you, Aaron. Have a great afternoon.
This has been the latest episode of the Unscripted podcast with your host, Aaron Conrad, from his studio at the Junction in Old Hilliard. Make sure to like, share, follow, and review on your favorite podcast platforms. Also, make sure to check out my song Great and Mighty One on Spotify, iTunes, or wherever you find your music. We'll be back with another great guest soon. We'll see you next time.